Hey, it's Black Vader once again, or I am Michael. It all depends on who you're talking to. I'm going into Area 5 Law today. Um, it's the code once again. The code is the code, just make sure you're doing something constructive. You're solving as much problems as you can while causing the least amount of problems as you can. I'm starting on page 149. Um, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna test out the algorithm today. I probably might just put Area 5 Law and nothing in the description or something just to see where it goes and just to see if it blows a little bit. So we'll see. But the following pages present suggestions that pertain to what a victim of racism. Also, like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Yeah, that's it. The following pages present suggestions to what pertain to what a victim of racism, non-white person should or should not choose to do in the fifth major area of people activity. Each person should choose to speak and or act according to one or more suggestions presented, but only if he or she decides to do so. No person should speak and or act according to any suggestions presented herein unless he or she has judged that the suggestion chosen is of current or correct value in helping to eliminate racism, white supremacy, and or in helping to better produce justice. It is important to know and understand that one or the more suggestions selected from one major area of people activity should be used in constructive combination with one or more suggestions selected from other major areas of people activity. If an individual person chooses to utilize any suggestions presented herein, he or she should do so in a manner at a specific time, at a specific place that will produce the most constructive results in a revelation of truth and or justice or correctness. Also, I'm finished reading the book, The Code, more or less, besides the quotes in the back. And I don't know if I would be going off code to read the last couple of let's just say war and counter war. I don't know if I should read that on YouTube or not. And I'm thinking that I should just not read it and just suggest everyone to just buy the book and read it and determine how you would want to use those pages to your own detriment. Or I can just read the whole thing. So just, choose for me, I guess. I might just read it. Who knows? But it's lit, so it's kind of like, I don't know, taking a risk. But here we go. Regardless of what you may have been told, expect at all times to be mistreated as a result of so-called laws and or legal systems that you are involved in and are subject to during the existence of the system of white supremacy racism. Do not expect truth to be revealed or used in a manner that results in justice or correctness through so-called lawmaking that is directly or indirectly dominated by racist man or racist woman, white supremacists collectively. At best, expect only the expressions of so-called concern or sympathy. So the most you'll get out of this are awes or, you know, but you're not going to get anything significant at best. So, according to compensatory logic, a law is anything that is done. This means that every time any police person does anything, he or she is practicing, enacting, enforcing, etc., a law of whatever it is that is being done. It is important to know and understand that law is not the same as justice. It is in a known universe dominated by the non-just and incorrect acts of people. It is best and correct not to use the word police to apply to any person now in existence. It is best and correct to use the terms law enforcer, law enforcement officer, or law enforcement official. The term at best are correct because of what a law is. Justice is what is that which is done that results in no person being mistreated, plus that which is done that results in the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Laws are a combination of things that done that may or may not result in the establishment of justice. Study the laws that are being made by people that you are involved with, and produce ways of using those same laws in a manner that best promotes the production of justice and correctness, balance between people, all people, creatures, things, etc. Two basic goals of correct law enforcement: one, to produce justice, and two, to eliminate injustice. Explanation: laws change, but justice remains the same. A law is a tool. A law is a tool that can be used to produce or maintain justice. A law can also be used as a tool to reduce and or maintain injustice. Any law that is enforced by people in a manner that does not promote the production of justice and or is enforced in such a manner that does not help produce justice is a non-law. Any person who enforces a non-law is acting as an outlaw and should not be allowed to enforce any law. No outlaw. Okay. If a system produces injustice, then the rules that maintain the system are incorrect, even though these same rules, if used to maintain a just system, would be correct rules. White supremacy, racism, is an incorrect system that promotes injustice. Any person who willfully helps to establish, maintain, expand, and or refine a condition of white supremacy, or who, if able, does not at all times strive to speak and or act against the condition, is a criminal and or an agent of criminals. All comforts that come to any white person as a direct or indirect result of the practice of white supremacy racism are comforts unjustly received. All white people who practice racism, white supremacy directly or indirectly are equal to each other in that practice. This is true because each individual act of racism is interrelated with all other acts of racism. This means that all white people who practice racism in any form are equally as guilty as those white people who practice racism in all forms. Racist man and racist woman, white supremacists collectively, by functioning as the white nation and by acting to maintain, expand, or refine the existence of racism, have more than any other creature in the known universe violated the natural law of compensation. By doing so, they have deliberately forced and or directed all other creatures, particularly non-white people, to do the same. Question: what are the duties of correct law enforcement officer? Answer: the basic one, the basic duty of the basic duty of a correct law enforcement officer is to have the correct intentions. 2. The basic duty of a law enforcement officer who has the correct intentions is to use every law act in such a manner as to help produce justice, balance between people. 3. The basic duty of a law enforcement officer who uses law act in such a manner as to help produce justice is to guarantee that no person is mistreated and to guarantee that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Notes: do not apply the word police to any person who is brutal. Do not apply the word police to any person who is racist, white supremacist, or a racist suspected white supremacist. Do not apply the word police to any person who enforces any law in such a manner that justice, balance between people, is not the result. Instead, use the term law enforcement officer to any person who is said to be directly or indirectly assigned to enforce the law, including any law that is, in effect, correct or incorrect. Every person in the known universe acts as a law enforcement officer because every person is at all times enforcing some kind of law. Example: the law of compensation. Avoid using the term police to describe any person now in existence. Use the term enforcement official to describe any person who uses force to enact the will of those who have the dominant power. Never refer never refer to a police officer as being a racist. Enforcement officials. Explanation. It is not possible for any person. It is not possible for any person to be a police person, police officer, policeman, policewoman, and at the same time be a racist. Police are people who seek and find truth and use the truth in such a manner as to produce justice and correctness at all times in all areas of activity. Racists, however, are people who practice white supremacy. White supremacy is a promotion of falsehood, non justice, and nor incorrectness based on factors associated with the color or non color of people. Law is anything that is done. A police person does not do anything in a manner that helps produce or maintain non justice. Therefore, in a known universe in which justice, balance between people does not exist, there is no evidence that police exist. What does exist are law enforcement officers. Keep in mind that a law enforcement officer is not necessarily a police officer. A police officer is a person who, at all times, speaks and acts in a manner that always results in justice being produced and or maintained. A law enforcement officer, however, is a person who enforces a law in such a manner as to make that law effective. The law act that is enforced, however, may or may not help produce justice. In a known universe in which justice does not exist, no person can truthfully claim to be or correctly be regarded as a police officer. No law among the people of the known universe has resulted in the establishment of justice. According to the compensatory counter-racist logic, it is impossible for a white supremacist to be a police officer or for a police officer to be a white supremacist. The correct term for a law enforcement officer who practices white supremacy racism is a suspected race soldier, suspected racist, or suspected white supremacist. Police do not commit brutality. Incorrect law enforcement officers do commit brutality. An incorrect law enforcement officer is any person who speaks or acts in such a manner that produces or maintains non justice, balance between people. While in the presence of law enforcement persons and in your general interaction with them, do the following. 1. Be as calm and courteous as you can possibly can. 2. Answer all questions in a manner that is calm and constructive. 3. If you are not absolutely certain of the answer to the question, say that you are not sure. 4. Do not use any profound language. And 5. Do not do anything or say anything that may cause a greater problem. Police officers always suspect that a white person is a white supremacist, racist if he or she approaches you with a weapon. As long as white supremacy racism exists, expect to be maimed, killed, or falsely accused by any white person who confronts you by presenting himself or herself as some form of law enforcement officer, police person, sheriff, constable, investigator, soldier, etc. Explanation. There are many white people who identify themselves as officers of the law, who believe in racism and white supremacy. There are many white people who have death-making weapons, who have the correct intentions. There are many who do not. If a white person says that he or she is a police officer, but speaks or acts in a manner that indicates that he or she is not a police officer, but a white supremacist racist, consider him or her a suspected race soldier, a suspected white supremacist who pretends to be a police officer. If a non-white person says that he or she is a police officer, but speaks or acts in a manner that indicates that he or she is not a police officer, but a person who is using force to help a suspected race soldier to enforce the practice of white supremacy racism, it is correct to use the term victim of white supremacy to apply to that non-white person. The term law and order has been used by white supremacist racists in a manner that helps to disguise the action practice of white supremacy racism. Um, yeah. If you are confronted by a suspected race soldier pretending to be a police officer, immediately go into danger mode. Regard yourself as being captured and completely helpless prisoner of war. As an explanation, as a prisoner of war, it is best to act as if you are a soldier captured in a greatly fortified enemy territory. If captured by a suspected race soldier, consider yourself as being captured because you have been. As a non-white person in most situations, you are regarded as a criminal, a dangerous animal, an enemy soldier, an escaped convict, a savage, etc. Your existence is in danger. Try to instantly remember that in every tense or hostile situation between you and a suspected race soldier, you most likely will be immediately killed. Suggestions. If confronted by a suspected race soldier, do not do anything to make that officer believe that you will not comply. Everything that you say should be yes sir, or yes ma'am, or no sir, or no ma'am, and always do what you are told to do. Even if you are told to put your hands up, put your hands up. If you are told to get on the ground, get on the ground. Do not argue, fight, resist, name call, or think about your rights. You may explain that later. Do not make any quick moves or give reason to believe you are being aggressive or non-compliant. Be courteous and do your best to be cooperative. Avoid doing or saying anything that will give them an excuse to legally do bodily harm to you. Keep in mind that during the existence of white supremacy racism, any person who is able to be a racist white supremacist, it probably is one. No one understands. As such, he or she is capable of doing great harm to you, and that he or she has the greater advantage. Any move that you make may be your last. Speak and act as if you know this. Do not pretend that you have power in this situation that logic tells you that you do not have. Do not mistakenly believe that you can exercise your right or show your so-called power by not cooperating. You are going to lose. The record shows that. Check the scoreboard. Ugh. What is the statute of limitations on justice? There is no statute of limitations on justice. No matter when or where non-justice exists, it should be immediately replaced with justice. No, during the existence of the system of white supremacy racism, justice does not and cannot exist. Greater confinement. Avoid doing anything that you have reason to believe may result in you being put in greater confinement, a jail, prison, etc. Explanation. In a socio-material system dominated by racism, white supremacy, all non-white people are confined, retarded, and are restricted in thought, speech, and action at all times, in all places, in all areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war, and counter-war. Too many victims of racism spend too much time and energy in greater confinement. Too many jails, prisons, concentration camps, etc. are established for the basic purpose of warehousing non-white people, including many of the unborn. The white supremacists know that a world system based on racist white supremacy requires their substantial numbers of non-white people to be greatly restricted in their movements from place to place. The white supremacists restrict the movements and activities of non-white people to keep them idle or keep them from becoming constructively self-sufficient. Know and understand that racist man and racist woman, white supremacists collectively, enjoy knowing that non-white people are traditionally and routinely in large number confined to cages or reservations similar to those of despised or enslaved animals or selected pets. They seem to associate dark-skinned, non-white people with creatures or things that are suitable for cages, crypts, coops, chains, cuffs, ropes, shackles, stalls, yokes, and all forms of acute or harsh ghettoization. Non-white people have been directly or indirectly trained to spend much of their existence in a condition of restriction of movement according to the desires, dictates, and plans of white supremacists of the known universe. Knowing and understand this to be true, it is best and correct for all non-white people to avoid or saying anything that they believe will result in unnecessary or non-constructive restrictions on their ability to move at will. The racists make certain that substantial numbers of non-white people exist under conditions that will most likely cause them to do things that will give the racists an excuse to put them in greater confinement. The racists cause this by using a variety of tactics, many of them based on deception through pretension. Examples: pretending to provide economic progress while working to hinder it, pretending to provide education progress while working to hinder it, pretending to produce justice while working to continue and refine the practice of injustice. Do your best to guarantee yourself and all others that you will never willfully and deliberately do anything that you know will likely result in your being put in greater confinement for being guilty of anything other than making a compensatory investment request. Making a compensatory investment request means to ask white people for whatever help that you need in order to produce constructive results. These results may include receiving necessary food, shelter, transportation, medical care, constructive teaching, etc. When asking white people for constructive help, compensatory investment requests, always do so with courtesy and without using violence or the threats of violence against them or their helpers. A universal compensatory investment request applies to every non-white person in the known universe who, because of the harmful effects of white supremacy, is not adequately able to constructively help himself or herself. It is incorrect to make a universal compensatory investment request if the person making the request has the ability, mental or physical, to do the constructive work that will result in his or her receiving the constructive help that he or she needs. It is correct to make this request only from white people and only from those white people that are likely engaging in the practice of white supremacy. It is incorrect to rob or steal from anyone for any reasons. The system of white supremacy is designed to force or entice non-white people to rob, steal, or so-called beg. It is not designed to allow non-white people to be self-supporting. Since robbing and stealing is worse than begging, it is better to be punished for so-called begging for justice than punished for robbing or stealing. It is better to want for things or beg for what one needs than to rob or steal to get those things to satisfy those needs. Considering all things, non-white people should most certainly not be guilty of robbing and stealing. The person who chooses to make a compensatory investment request must be prepared to suffer ridicule, greater deprivation, and possibly death because of doing so. When talking about the best and correct thing to say about greater confinement, jail, prison, say the following. During the existence of white supremacy, any non-white person who willfully or deliberately does anything that he or she knows is likely to result in being put in greater confinement, jail, prison, etc., should expect to be put in greater confinement, and while there should expect no mercy, no comfort, and no help in being released. And that's the video for today. Hopefully I don't put no hashtags just to see if we get more views. If we don't, then I'm just going to use the same old, and keep the ball rolling. But thank you guys for reading with me for these 25 or so minutes. I needed the code. We're almost halfway there. But thank you guys for rolling with me. And let us continue to do great things and continue to be constructive. God bless you all. And yeah, that's it. Have a wonderful day. Peace. Love y'all.